A deal made in darkness. The morning air in Clarksville, Tennessee, carried the scent of rain and regret. Melody Rivers sat on the worn porch steps of the Foster home, her fingers tracing the delicate chain around her neck. The locket was small and silver, shaped like a music note, and it was the only thing connecting her to a past she could not remember. At 24 years old, Melody had lived in darkness since she was 6, when a fever had stolen her sight and most of her memories. "Get inside, girl." Candace Morris's voice cut through the quiet like a rusty blade. "We got company coming, and I don't need you making us look worse than we already are." Melody stood slowly, her white cane tapping against the wooden boards. She had learned long ago that arguing with Candace only brought more trouble. The woman had taken her in 15 years ago, not out of kindness but for the monthly checks that came with fostering a disabled child. Love had never been part of the arrangement. Inside the cramped living room, Melody heard unfamiliar footsteps. Expensive shoes on cheap linoleum. A woman's voice, cultured and commanding, spoke to Candace in hushed tones. Melody caught fragments of the conversation: money, marriage, duty, family honor. This is her. The new voice belonged to someone older, someone used to being obeyed. She will have to do. Melody's heart quickened. What's happening? Good news, Melody, Candace said, her tone falsely bright. You're getting married. To a very important man in San Francisco. Mrs. Ruth Blake here has made us a generous offer. Married? Melody's fingers tightened around her cane. I don't understand. I don't even know anyone in San Francisco. Ruth Blake stepped closer. Melody could smell her perfume, floral and overwhelming. You don't need to understand, child. You need to be grateful. My grandson needs a wife, and you fit certain requirements. This marriage will save both our families. What requirements? Melody asked, her voice trembling. The old prophecies are not your concern, Ruth said coldly. Pack whatever matters to you. We leave tomorrow. That night, Melody lay awake in her small room, clutching the locket. She had no choice in this, no power to refuse. Candace had already taken the money, $50,000, to hand over her foster daughter like property. Tears slipped down Melody's cheeks as she whispered to the darkness, asking for strength from whoever might be listening. The golden cage. San Francisco hit Melody like a wall of sound and sensation. The plane ride had been terrifying, every bump and turn reminding her how far she was from the only home she had known. When they arrived at Blake Manor, the vast estate in Pacific Heights, Melody felt the weight of wealth pressing down on her. Watch your step, Ruth said without warmth as they entered. The marble floors are slippery. Melody's cane echoed in what must have been an enormous foyer. She heard fountains, the rustle of expensive fabrics, the distant hum of servants moving through hidden corridors. This was not a home, it was a monument to power. Is he here? Melody asked quietly. Your grandson. Harrison is at his office. He runs Blake Technologies, the third largest software company in the nation. He has no time for sentiment. Ruth's heels clicked away. Rosa will show you to your quarters. The wedding is in 3 days. A gentle hand touched Melody's elbow. Come with me, miss, a soft voice said. Rosa, the housekeeper, guided her through winding hallways to a room that smelled of lavender and lemon polish. It's beautiful here, Rosa said kindly. Large windows overlooking the bay. A 4-poster bed with blue silk covers. You'll be comfortable. Will I meet him before the wedding? Melody asked. Harrison is at his office. He runs Blake Technologies, the third largest software company in the nation. He has no time for sentiment. Ruth's heels clicked away. Rosa will show you to your quarters. The wedding is in 3 days. A gentle hand touched Melody's elbow. Come with me, miss, a soft voice said. Rosa, the housekeeper, guided her through winding hallways to a room that smelled of lavender and lemon polish. "It's beautiful here," Rosa said kindly. "Large windows overlooking the bay. A four-poster bed with blue silk covers. You'll be comfortable." "Will I meet him before the wedding?" Melody asked. Rosa hesitated. "Mr. Blake is a complicated man. He lost someone very dear to him when he was young. His heart, it has been closed for many years." The wedding happened in a blur of words Melody barely understood. She wore a dress that Rosa described as ivory with pearl details. Harrison Blake's voice, when he spoke his vows, was deep and emotionless. His hand, when it briefly held hers, was cold. There was no kiss, no celebration, just a legal binding that felt more like a business contract than a marriage. That night, Harrison came to her room. Not with tenderness but with duty. He said nothing, and in the darkness, Melody felt more alone than she ever had. When he left, she curled into herself and wept silently, her fingers finding the locket once more. The woman in the shadows. Days turned into weeks, and Melody learned the rhythm of Blake Manor. She could navigate the main floor by counting steps and memorizing turns. The staff was kind to her, especially Rosa, but the family treated her like an inconvenience. Harrison's sister, Fiona, made cutting remarks about Melody's blindness. His cousin James openly mocked her at dinner parties. Harrison himself was a ghost. He left before dawn and returned after midnight. When he did speak to Melody, his words were clipped and formal. She was his wife in name only, a stranger living in his house. "Why did you agree to this?" Melody finally asked him one evening when they happened to cross paths in the library. "My grandmother believes in old stories, old debts," Harrison replied, his voice tired. "She thinks you will bring protection to our family. I think it's nonsense, but I owe her everything. She raised me when my parents died." "What about what I want?" Melody asked, her frustration rising. "Did anyone ask me? Did anyone ask me?" Harrison shot back. Then, more quietly, "I'm sorry. This isn't fair to either of us. But I can't undo it now." He left her standing there, and Melody sank into a nearby chair. She ran her fingers along the shelf of books she would never read, feeling the embossed titles under her touch. This was her life now, trapped in luxury but starving for connection. It was Rosa who told her about the woman. "There's talk in the house, miss. A woman from Mr. Blake's company has been visiting. Jade Winchester, her name is. She's been telling people she knew Mr. Blake when they were children. That they were close." Melody's stomach tightened. "How close?" "Close enough that he's been spending all his free time with her. She wears a locket too, miss. Just like yours, but gold instead of silver." That night, Melody lay awake, her hand over her abdomen. She had discovered 2 weeks ago that she was pregnant. She had not told Harrison yet, afraid of his reaction, hoping that maybe the news would soften him. But now, with this Jade Winchester in the picture, Melody felt her fragile hope crumbling. The next morning, she heard them together in the garden. Jade's laughter was like crystal breaking. "Do you remember, Harrison? The summer by the lake? You gave me a locket and promised we would always be together. I never stopped looking for you." Harrison's voice was warm in a way Melody had never heard. "When you disappeared, part of me died too." Melody's heart shattered. She turned and walked carefully back to the house, her cane tapping a lonely rhythm. She did not see Jade smile, sharp and victorious. She did not know that the woman was lying, that Owen Park, Harrison's trusted assistant, had fed Jade every detail of Harrison's childhood for the right price. Breaking point. The pregnancy should have been a joy, but Melody kept it secret, nursing the knowledge like a fragile flame. She wanted to wait until she felt stronger, until she understood her place in this strange new world. But fate had other plans. One afternoon, as Melody descended the grand staircase, carefully counting each step, she felt a sudden, violent shove from behind. She tumbled forward, her cane flying from her hand, her body striking the marble with brutal force. Pain exploded through her, and she screamed. Rosa found her minutes later, crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, blood pooling beneath her. Someone help. Call the doctor. Harrison arrived home to chaos. Melody was in bed, pale and barely conscious. The doctor, a stern man named Phillips, shook his head gravely. She's lost the baby. The fall caused severe trauma. I'm sorry. Harrison stood frozen. Baby? She was pregnant. About 3 months along, Dr. Phillips confirmed. Did she not tell you? Harrison looked at Melody, and for the first time, something like guilt crossed his face. But before he could speak, Jade appeared in the doorway, her expression one of false concern. How terrible. But Harrison, these things happen. Melody is so clumsy in her condition. She was pushed, Melody whispered, her voice hoarse. I felt hands on my back. You're confused from the trauma, Jade said smoothly, moving to Harrison's side. Who would do such a thing? You simply lost your footing. Ruth Blake entered then, her face hard. This is what happens when we bring outsiders into our family. Nothing but trouble and tragedy. Melody closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She had lost her child, and no one believed her. The darkness of her blindness seemed to swallow her whole. Over the next few days, as Melody recovered physically, her spirit hardened. She stopped crying. She stopped hoping. When Harrison came to check on her, she turned her face away. When Ruth made her cruel comments, Melody no longer flinched. One morning, Melody made her way to Harrison's study. She had practiced the path until she could walk it without hesitation. I want a divorce, she said, her voice steady. Harrison looked up from his desk, startled. What? I want a divorce. This marriage is a prison. You don't love me. You barely tolerate me. I lost our child, and you didn't even care enough to ask if I was all right. Melody, Harrison struggled for words. This isn't the right time. My grandmother's health is failing. The company is facing challenges. I need stability. What about what I need? Melody's voice rose. I need to be somewhere I'm not treated like a burden. Somewhere I'm not invisible. You're my wife, Harrison said firmly. Legally and in the eyes of my family that I won't grant you a divorce. Learn to accept your place here. Melody stood there, her hands shaking. Then she turned and left without another word. That night, she made a decision. She would leave Blake Manor, with or without his permission. She would find a way to survive on her own. But as she packed her few belongings, her fingers brushing over the locket one last time, Melody could not shake the feeling that her story was not over. That somewhere in the darkness, there was a light waiting for her. She just had to be brave enough to find it. The moon rose over San Francisco, casting silver light through her window. Melody took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and prepared to step into an unknown future. She had been broken, but she refused to stay that way. Tomorrow would bring change. Tomorrow would bring truth. And tomorrow, Melody Rivers would discover that she was so much more than anyone, including herself, had ever imagined. The imposter's game. The rain hammered against the windows of Blake Technologies headquarters as Jade Winchester sat in Harrison's private office, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming on the leather armrest. At 30 years old, Jade had clawed her way up in the corporate world through manipulation and calculated moves. Harrison Blake was her biggest target yet. Tell me again about the lake house, Harrison said, his eyes distant with memory. He sat across from her, exhausted from another 18-hour workday. What did we use to do there? Jade smiled, her expression practiced and perfect. Owen Park, Harrison's assistant, had given her every detail she needed. We used to catch fireflies in mason jars. You said they looked like tiny stars we could hold in our hands. And you gave me a locket shaped like a music note, gold with tiny diamonds. You said music was the language of the soul. Harrison's face softened. I remember that locket. I spent all summer saving money to buy it. He paused, studying her face. But your eyes. I remember them being different. Colored contacts back then, Jade said smoothly, touching her green eyes. Owen had warned her about this detail. My mother made me wear them. She thought brown eyes were too common. Harrison nodded, accepting the lie. Jade hid her satisfaction. Every conversation pulled him further from Melody and deeper into her web. She had researched everything about Harrison's lost childhood friend, the girl who had vanished after a family tragedy when they were both 12. The real girl's name had been Annie, and she had died in a car accident 15 years ago. But Harrison didn't know that. He had spent 2 decades searching for a ghost. I still can't believe I found you, Harrison said, reaching across to take Jade's hand. After all these years. Fate brought us back together, Jade replied, her voice honey-sweet. We were always meant to be. Melody's silent strength across the city. Melody sat in her room at Blake Manor, her hands folded in her lap. 2 weeks had passed since she had asked Harrison for a divorce. 2 weeks since he had refused. The loss of her baby still ached like a physical wound, made worse by the cold indifference of the Blake family. Rosa entered quietly with a tea tray. Miss Melody, you need to eat something. You've barely touched your meals. I'm not hungry, Melody said softly. Rosa, do you think I'm cursed? Everything I touch seems to fall apart. Rosa set down the tray and sat beside her. You're not cursed, child. You're trapped. There's a difference. She hesitated, then continued in a whisper. I've been in this house for 20 years. I've seen things. That woman, Jade Winchester, she's not who she claims to be. Melody turned toward Rosa's voice. What do you mean? I heard her on the phone last week. She was talking to someone about money, about how much she would get once she secured her position here. And that assistant, Owen Park, I've seen them together in the gardens, laughing about something. Hope flickered in Melody's chest. Can you find proof? I can try, Rosa promised. But you need to be careful. Mrs. Ruth Blake believes Jade is the answer to her prophecies. If you speak against her without evidence, they'll cast you out with nothing. After Rosa left, Melody stood and made her way to the window. She could feel the warmth of sunlight on her face, could hear the distant sounds of the city below. For so long, she had accepted her blindness as a limitation. But maybe it was time to see with different eyes. The poison spreads. Jade's influence over Harrison grew with each passing day. She accompanied him to business dinners, sat in on company meetings, and slowly began inserting herself into every aspect of his life. Owen Park fed her confidential information about Blake Technologies' competitors, which she then presented to Harrison as her own brilliant insights. You're amazing, Harrison told her one evening after she had helped him close a major deal. How did you know Martinez Industries was planning to back out? Jade smiled. I've always been good at reading people. It's a gift. What Harrison didn't know was that Owen had hacked into Martinez's email servers, stealing their internal communications. Jade and Owen had formed a partnership built on greed and ambition. Once Jade secured her position as Harrison's wife, they would have access to the Blake fortune. They just needed to remove one obstacle, Melody. She's still here, Owen said during one of their secret meetings in a downtown cafe. Harrison won't divorce her. His grandmother's will stipulates that he must remain married to maintain control of the family trust. Jade's eyes narrowed. Then we need to make her leave on her own. Or better yet, discredit her so completely that Harrison has grounds for annulment. What did you have in mind? Plant evidence that she's been stealing from the house. Small things at first. Ruth Blake's jewelry, family heirlooms. Make it look like Melody is taking advantage of their kindness. Owen nodded slowly. That could work. But we need to be careful. That housekeeper, Rosa, she's protective of Melody. Then we'll deal with Rosa too, Jade said coldly. The plan went into motion the following week. Jade carefully took a diamond bracelet from Ruth Blake's jewelry box and planted it in Melody's room, tucked inside a drawer where it would be easily discovered. Then she made an anonymous complaint to Ruth about missing items. Ruth, already predisposed to dislike Melody, immediately ordered a search of her room. Melody was in the garden when she heard the commotion. "What's happening?" she asked Rosa, who had come to find her. "They're searching your room. Mrs. Blake is accusing you of theft." Melody's blood ran cold. "I haven't taken anything. I wouldn't even know how to find these things." "I know, child. But they've already made up their minds." When Melody returned to the house, she found Ruth, Fiona, and James gathered in the foyer, the diamond bracelet held aloft like evidence at a trial. "You dare steal from this family?" Ruth's voice shook with rage. "After everything we've given you?" "I didn't take that," Melody said, her voice steady despite her fear. "I've never even been in your room." "She's lying," Fiona spat. "She probably planned to sell it. God knows she came from nothing." Harrison arrived home in the midst of the chaos. "What's going on?" "Your wife is a thief," Ruth declared. "I want her arrested." Harrison looked at Melody, and she felt the weight of his judgment. "Did you take it?" "No," Melody said firmly. "I'm being set up." "By whom?" Harrison asked, his tone skeptical. "Who would benefit from framing you?" Melody wanted to say Jade's name, but she had no proof. "I don't know. But I'm telling the truth." Jade appeared then, perfectly timed, her face a mask of concern. "Harrison, maybe there's been a misunderstanding." Melody might have picked it up without realizing. Her condition makes things difficult. The implication was clear: Melody was incompetent, possibly confused. Harrison's face hardened. "I think it's best if you stay in your room for now, Melody. Until we sort this out." "You're imprisoning me?" Melody asked, disbelief coloring her words. "I'm protecting the family's reputation," Harrison replied coldly. That night, locked in her room with only Rosa's secret visits for company, Melody made a decision. She would not wait for Harrison to destroy her completely. She would find a way out, even if it meant leaving with nothing but the clothes on her back and the locket around her neck. Owen's guilt. While Jade celebrated her victory, Owen Park found himself unable to sleep. He had worked for Harrison for 7 years, had been treated with respect and given opportunities he never would have had elsewhere. And now he was betraying the man who had trusted him. It started with small things. Jade had approached him 6 months ago with an offer: help her get close to Harrison, and she would cut him in on the Blake fortune. Owen, drowning in gambling debts and desperate for a way out, had agreed. But he hadn't counted on how far Jade would go. The theft accusation was bad enough. But Owen had overheard Jade talking to someone on the phone, discussing more permanent solutions to the Melody problem. The words "accident" and "untraceable" had made his blood run cold. Owen sat in his apartment, a glass of whiskey in his shaking hands, and made a choice. He pulled out his laptop and began documenting everything: the emails he had hacked, the information he had stolen, the lies he had told Harrison about Jade's past. He saved it all to an encrypted file and sent a copy to his personal email. If things went too far, if Jade actually tried to hurt Melody, he would have evidence to stop her. It was a small redemption, but it was something. The locket's secret. Rosa had been watching and listening, gathering her own evidence. She had served the Blake family for 2 decades, and she knew the difference between genuine love and calculated deception. Jade Winchester was poison, and Rosa was determined to find the antidote. One afternoon, while Jade was out with Harrison, Rosa slipped into Jade's guest room. She searched carefully, mindful not to disturb anything. In a locked drawer of the dresser, Rosa found what she was looking for: a gold locket, identical to the one Jade claimed Harrison had given her as a child. Rosa examined it closely. The craftsmanship was new, the metal too shiny to be decades old. She opened it and found a photograph inside, a picture of Jade and a man Rosa didn't recognize, their arms around each other, both smiling. The date stamp on the photo was from 2 years ago. Rosa photographed the locket with her phone, then carefully returned everything to its place. She now had proof that Jade was lying about her past with Harrison. But she needed more. She needed to connect Jade to the theft accusation and the attack on the stairs that had caused Melody's miscarriage. That evening, Rosa visited Melody in her room. "I found something," she whispered, showing her the photos on her phone. Though Melody couldn't see them, Rosa described everything in detail. "We need to get this to Harrison," Melody said urgently. "Not yet. If we show him now, Jade will claim the locket is a replica, a keepsake she bought later. We need proof of her real identity, her connection to Owen Park, everything." "How long will that take?" "I don't know. But I won't let her destroy you, Miss Melody. You've suffered enough." The breaking point. 2 days later, everything exploded. Harrison called a family meeting in the main dining room. Ruth Blake sat at the head of the table, her face drawn and pale. Fiona and James flanked her sides. Melody was brought down from her room, Rosa guiding her carefully. Jade sat beside Harrison, her hand possessively on his arm. Owen Park stood near the door, his face ashen. "I've made a decision," Harrison announced. "Given recent events, I think it's best if Melody and I separate. I'll provide her with a settlement, enough to live comfortably, but she'll leave Blake Manor immediately." Melody's hands clenched in her lap. "And what about the truth? What about the fact that I'm innocent?" "The evidence suggests otherwise," Harrison said, his voice flat and cold. "What evidence?" Melody demanded, her voice rising. "A bracelet that anyone could have planted? Accusations from people who've hated me since I arrived?" "Mind your tone," Ruth snapped. "You should be grateful we're not prosecuting you." "Prosecute me then," Melody said, standing abruptly. "Take me to court. Let's see if your flimsy frame job holds up under real scrutiny." The room fell silent. Jade's smile faltered slightly. Owen shifted uncomfortably. "You've been nothing but cold to me since the day we married," Melody continued, her voice shaking but strong. "You fulfilled your grandmother's superstitious demands, but you never gave me a chance. You never saw me as a person. And when I lost our baby because someone pushed me down those stairs, you didn't even ask if I was all right. You just accepted Jade's version of events." "Melody," Harrison said, a warning in his tone. "No," she cut him off. "I'm done being silent. I'm done being the convenient scapegoat for this family's cruelty. You want me gone? Fine. I'll go. But I'm taking the truth with me, and one day, you'll realize how badly you failed." She turned toward where she knew the door was, her white cane tapping sharply against the floor. Rosa moved to help her, but Melody held up a hand. "I can find my own way out." As she left the room, Harrison felt something twist in his chest. But Jade's hand tightened on his arm, and her soft voice whispered reassurances. "You did the right thing. She was only going to bring more trouble." Harrison nodded, but for the first time since Jade had reappeared in his life, doubt crept into his mind. The midnight visitor that night, as Melody packed her few belongings, she heard a soft knock on her door. She expected Rosa, but the voice that spoke was Owen Park's. "Miss Rivers, I need to talk to you." Melody tensed. "I have nothing to say to you. You're Jade's ally." "That's what I need to talk about," Owen said urgently. "Please. 5 minutes." Against her better judgment, Melody opened the door. Owen entered, closing it quickly behind him. "I've been helping Jade," he began without preamble. "She paid me to give her information about Harrison's past, about his childhood. Everything she's told him is a lie. She's not the girl from his childhood. That girl died 15 years ago in a car accident." Melody's breath caught. You're saying she's an imposter? Yes. And I helped her. I gave her the details she needed to fool him. But it's gone too far. She's talking about hurting you, about making sure you disappear permanently. I can't be part of that. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm not a murderer, Owen said, his voice cracking. I'm a coward and a thief, but I'm not that. I have proof. Everything is documented. Emails, recordings, bank transfers. If something happens to you, it all goes to the police. He pressed a USB drive into her hand. This is a copy of everything. Get out of here tonight. Don't wait until morning. Jade has connections, dangerous people she's worked with before. Once you're gone, she'll either come after you or move on to securing her place here. What about you? Melody asked. I'll face the consequences of my actions. But you need to survive first. Owen's footsteps moved toward the door. There's a car waiting at the service entrance. The driver's name is Miguel. He'll take you wherever you want to go. Rosa arranged it. After Owen left, Melody sat in shock. Her hands trembled as she held the USB drive. Freedom was within reach, but it came with so many questions. Who was she really? Why had Candace Morris sold her so easily? And why did the locket around her neck feel heavier than ever? She gathered her things and made her way carefully through the darkened halls of Blake Manor. Rosa met her at the service entrance, pressing money into her hands. This is from my savings, Rosa whispered. It's not much, but it'll help you start over. I can't take this, Melody protested. You can and you will. Now go, before someone sees you. Melody hugged Rosa tightly, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. For everything. Be strong, child. Your story isn't over yet. Miguel, a kind-voiced man with gentle hands, helped Melody into the car. As they pulled away from Blake Manor, Melody looked back at the mansion she couldn't see, but could feel looming behind her. Where to, miss? Miguel asked. Melody clutched the USB drive and the locket, feeling the weight of both. I don't know yet. Just drive. As the car disappeared into the San Francisco night, neither Melody nor Harrison knew that their paths would cross again. That the truth about the locket, about their shared past, about the lies that had torn them apart, would soon come to light in ways neither could imagine. 3,000 miles away in Boston, Preston Chambers sat in his penthouse office overlooking the harbor. At 58 years old, he had built Chambers Foundation into one of the most respected philanthropic organizations in the country, focusing on reuniting missing children with their families. But his own daughter remained lost. 22 years ago, his wife Diana had taken their 2-year-old daughter, Annie, to a farmer's market in Tennessee. They had been visiting Diana's sister in Clarksville. In one chaotic moment, when Diana turned to pay for strawberries, Annie had vanished. The search had been massive, involving FBI, state police, and countless volunteers. But no trace of Annie was ever found. Diana had died 5 years later, her heart broken by grief. Preston had never remarried, never stopped searching. He funded databases, hired investigators, and helped hundreds of other families find their missing children. But his own daughter remained a ghost. His assistant, Thomas Brennan, knocked and entered. Sir, you're going to want to see this. One of our algorithm matches just flagged something unusual. Preston looked up from his paperwork. The Chambers Foundation used advanced facial recognition and data matching to identify potential matches between missing children and unidentified adults. What kind of match? A woman in San Francisco. She was recently treated at a private clinic for injuries sustained in a fall. The intake nurse noted an unusual locket the patient was wearing. Our volunteer coordinator saw the medical report during a routine database scan. The locket description matches the one your daughter was wearing when she disappeared. Preston's heart began to pound. Show me. Thomas placed a file on the desk. Inside was a grainy photo from a security camera showing a young woman with a white cane, a locket visible around her neck. The locket was silver, shaped like a music note, with a sun and moon design. "That's it," Preston whispered, his hands shaking. "That's Annie's locket. I had it custom made for her first birthday. Diana's brother was a musician. He died before Annie was born, so we named her after him. His name was Andrew, but everyone called him Melody." "There's more," Thomas continued gently. "The woman's name is listed as Melody Rivers. She's 24 years old. She's blind. And according to hospital records from Tennessee, she lost her sight and most of her childhood memories due to a severe fever when she was 6 years old." Preston stood abruptly. "Where is she now?" "That's where it gets complicated. She was recently married to Harrison Blake, the tech billionaire. But according to our sources, she left Blake Manor 3 nights ago. No one knows where she went." "Find her," Preston commanded, his voice intense. "Use every resource we have. If that's my daughter, I'm bringing her home." Melody's journey. Melody had been on the road for 3 days, staying in cheap motels and eating vending machine food. Miguel had driven her to Sacramento before she insisted he return home. She didn't want Rosa to get in trouble for helping her escape. Now Melody sat in a bus station in Reno, Nevada, clutching the USB drive Owen had given her and trying to figure out her next move. She had no family, no friends, and very little money. The world suddenly felt impossibly vast. "Excuse me, miss?" A woman's voice broke through her thoughts. "Are you Melody Rivers?" Melody tensed. "Who's asking?" "My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm a private investigator working for Preston Chambers. He believes you might be his daughter, Annie Chambers, who was kidnapped 22 years ago." Melody's breath caught. "That's impossible. My name is Melody. I've been Melody my whole life. May I sit down?" Melody nodded, and Jennifer settled beside her. "The locket you're wearing. Can you tell me about it? It's the only thing I have from my childhood. I don't remember who gave it to me or why. After the fever, everything before age 6 is just blank. That locket was custom made by Preston Chambers for his daughter's first birthday. It's one of a kind. There's an inscription inside. May I see it?" With trembling hands, Melody removed the locket and handed it over. She heard Jennifer's sharp intake of breath. "It says, 'For our little Melody, love eternal, Mom and Dad,'" Jennifer read softly. Melody was Preston's nickname for his daughter. Her legal name was Annie, but he called her Melody because of his late brother-in-law, the musician. Tears streamed down Melody's face. "I don't understand. Candace Morris said she found me abandoned at a church. She said I had no family. Candace Morris has a criminal record. Multiple fraud charges, child endangerment. We believe she was part of a kidnapping ring that sold children to people willing to pay for fake adoptions. She must have taken you after you were stolen from that farmer's market. So I have a father." Melody's voice broke. "A real father who wants me. He's been searching for you for 22 years. He never gave up hope." Jennifer gently took Melody's hand. "Will you come meet him?" "Yes," Melody whispered. "Yes, please." The reunion. The private plane ride to Boston was surreal. Jennifer explained everything: Preston's wealth, his foundation, the years of searching. By the time they landed, Melody was overwhelmed with emotion. Preston met them at his estate in Beacon Hill. When Melody stepped out of the car, guided by Jennifer, Preston couldn't speak. He just stared at this young woman who looked so much like his late wife Diana, but with his own gray eyes. "Annie," he finally managed, his voice choked with tears. "I don't remember being Annie," Melody said honestly. "But if you're my father, I'd like to know you." Preston crossed the distance between them and carefully, tentatively, embraced her. "Welcome home, sweetheart. Welcome home." Over the next few days, Preston shared everything: photo albums, home videos, stories about Diana and their life before the kidnapping. Melody absorbed it all, these glimpses into a past she couldn't remember but desperately wanted to reclaim. "There's something else," Preston said one evening as they sat in his library. "I've consulted with the best ophthalmologists in the world. They believe your blindness might be reversible. The fever caused scarring on your corneas, but with modern techniques, there's a good chance we could restore your vision." Melody's hands trembled. "Really?" Dr. Helen Wu at Massachusetts General is one of the leading experts in corneal transplants and reconstructive eye surgery. She's reviewed your medical records and believes she can help. But it's your decision, sweetheart. No pressure. "I want to try," Melody said immediately. "I want to see your face. I want to see the world." The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Dr. Helen Wu, a brilliant woman in her 40s with a gentle manner, explained every step of the procedure. "We'll do a corneal transplant combined with some reconstructive work. Recovery will take several weeks, but if successful, you should regain most of your vision." The night before surgery, Melody couldn't sleep. She walked through Preston's mansion, her cane tapping softly, memorizing the layout of her new home. She found Preston in his study, working late. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "I'm nervous. What if it doesn't work? Then we'll love you just the same." "But Melody, I have a good feeling about this. You've been through so much, survived so much. I think it's time for something good to happen." She moved to sit beside him, and he put his arm around her. "Thank you," she whispered. "For never giving up. For finding me. You're my daughter. I would have searched forever." The transformation. The surgery took 8 hours. When Melody woke in recovery, her eyes were bandaged, and Dr. Wu's voice was calm and reassuring. "Everything went perfectly. We'll remove the bandages in 2 weeks." Those 2 weeks were the longest of Melody's life. Preston stayed by her side, reading to her, describing the spring flowers blooming in his garden, telling her stories about her mother. Slowly, Melody began to heal, not just physically but emotionally. When the day came to remove the bandages, Melody sat in Dr. Wu's office, Preston holding her hand. "Ready?" the doctor asked. Melody nodded, too nervous to speak. Slowly, carefully, Dr. Wu unwrapped the bandages. Light flooded in, and Melody blinked rapidly, overwhelmed by sensation. "Take your time," Dr. Wu encouraged. "Your eyes need to adjust." Shapes began to form. Colors emerged from the blur. And then, suddenly, everything clicked into focus. Melody gasped, tears streaming down her face as she saw Dr. Wu's kind smile, the medical equipment, the window showing a brilliant blue sky. "I can see," she breathed. "I can actually see." She turned to Preston, and her breath caught. His silver hair, his gray eyes so like her own, the tears streaming down his weathered face. "Dad," she whispered, using the word for the first time. "You're beautiful." Preston pulled her into his arms, both of them crying. "So are you, sweetheart. So are you." Over the next few weeks, Melody experienced the world with new eyes. She saw herself in the mirror for the first time in 18 years, a young woman with honey brown hair, gray eyes, delicate features. She looked like the photos of Diana that filled Preston's house. Preston enrolled her in accelerated courses to catch up on everything she had missed. He also brought her into the foundation, teaching her about the work they did. Melody threw herself into it, helping other missing children find their way home, understanding their pain intimately. The evidence surfaces. One afternoon, Melody was organizing her belongings when she found a USB drive Owen Park had given her. She had almost forgotten about it in the whirlwind of her new life. She plugged it into her laptop and began reviewing the files. What she found made her blood run cold. Emails between Jade and Owen discussing how to manipulate Harrison. Bank transfers showing payments to Owen for information. Recordings of Jade practicing her fake stories about childhood memories. And most damning, a background check on Jade Winchester revealing her real name, Jade Sullivan, a known con artist with a history of targeting wealthy men. There was also evidence about the theft accusation, security footage from a hidden camera Jade had installed in Ruth Blake's room, showing Jade herself taking the bracelet and planting it in Melody's room. And finally, a chilling recorded conversation between Jade and an unknown man discussing permanently removing obstacles. "Dad," Melody called out, her voice urgent. Preston came immediately, and she showed him everything. "This woman is dangerous," Preston said grimly. "And Harrison Blake has no idea. We need to take this to the authorities." "Not yet," Melody said slowly. An idea was forming in her mind. "Jade thinks she won. She thinks I'm gone and forgotten. But what if I went back? What if I exposed her in front of everyone?" "That's risky," Preston warned. "This woman has already hurt you once." "But I'm not the same person anymore," Melody said, meeting her father's eyes. "I'm not blind. I'm not powerless. And I have the truth on my side. It's time to go back and reclaim what's mine." The return. 6 months after leaving Blake Manor, Melody returned to San Francisco. But she didn't come as the broken, blind girl who had fled in the night. She came as Annie Chambers, heir to the Chambers fortune, director of a major philanthropic foundation, and a woman with evidence that would destroy Jade Winchester. Preston had arranged everything. Chambers Foundation was partnering with Blake Technologies on a major initiative to combat child trafficking. The announcement would be made at a gala event at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Harrison Blake would be there. Jade Winchester would be there. And Melody would reveal the truth in front of the entire city's elite. The night of the gala, Melody stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her emerald green dress. Her hair was styled elegantly, her makeup subtle but striking. She looked powerful, confident, nothing like the frightened girl who had lived in Blake Manor. "You ready for this?" Preston asked, appearing in the doorway of her hotel suite. "More than ready," Melody replied. "It's time for justice." They arrived at the museum in a limousine, cameras flashing as they walked the red carpet. Melody held her head high, the locket visible around her neck, now paired with elegant diamonds Preston had given her. Inside the grand hall, she scanned the crowd until she found him. Harrison Blake stood near the bar, looking tired and older than his 32 years. And beside him, draped on his arm like a possession, was Jade Winchester. Melody watched them for a moment, noting how Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes, how Jade's grip on his arm was possessive rather than affectionate. She felt a twinge of something, not quite pity, not quite anger. Just a deep sadness for what could have been. "Miss Chambers?" A young man in a staff uniform approached. "We're ready for your speech whenever you are." Melody nodded. "I'm ready." The revelation. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated the stage. Preston took the microphone first, welcoming everyone and explaining the partnership between Chambers Foundation and Blake Technologies. Then he introduced his daughter. "Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Annie Chambers, director of our foundation, and my daughter, who was returned to me after 22 years of searching." Melody walked onto the stage, and she heard the gasps. People who had known her as Melody Rivers couldn't believe the transformation. Harrison's face had gone pale, his eyes wide with shock. "Thank you all for coming," Melody began, her voice steady and clear. "My father told you I was missing for 22 years. What he didn't tell you is that 6 months ago, I was living right here in San Francisco. But I was known by a different name, Melody Rivers. Some of you might remember me as Harrison Blake's wife." The room erupted in whispers. Jade's face had turned white. Harrison stood frozen. "I was blind then," Melody continued. "Blind in more ways than one. I couldn't see the world around me, and I couldn't see the truth. But thanks to my father and some excellent doctors, my sight has been restored. And now I can see everything clearly. She pulled out a tablet and connected it to the presentation screen behind her. I want to show you all something. Evidence of fraud, manipulation, and attempted murder. The screen lit up with emails, bank transfers, recordings. The audience watched in stunned silence as Jade Winchester's entire scheme was laid bare. The fake locket, the stolen information, the planted evidence, the payments to Owen Park. Everything. This woman, Melody pointed to Jade, is not who she claims to be. She is a con artist who manipulated Harrison Blake into believing she was his lost childhood friend. She paid his assistant to steal private information. She framed me for theft. And she caused the fall that killed my unborn child. The room exploded. Security moved toward Jade, but she ran, pushing through the crowd. Harrison, his face a mask of horror and disbelief, didn't move. Wait, Melody called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. The crowd quieted. There's one more thing you all need to know. Harrison, can you come up here please? Harrison moved like a man in a dream, climbing the stairs to the stage. He stood before Melody, seeing her truly for the first time. Do you recognize this? Melody asked, holding up the locket. Harrison's eyes widened. That's the locket I gave to Sonny. My childhood friend. But you said Jade had it. Jade had a fake. This is the real one. Your Sonny was kidnapped 22 years ago from a farmer's market in Tennessee. Her real name was Annie Chambers. But her father called her Melody, after her uncle. And you, Harrison, you called her Sonny because she was your sunshine. Harrison stared at her, his mind racing. The lake house. The fireflies. You had a scar on your knee from falling off the dock. I don't remember that, Melody admitted. The fever took those memories. But I found this. She pulled out an old photograph, weathered and faded. Preston had found it in Diana's belongings. This is you and me, age 7, at that lake house. Your grandmother Ruth took this photo. Harrison took the photograph with shaking hands. Two children smiled at the camera, holding hands. It was undeniably them. You were my wife all along, Harrison whispered. You were Sonny, and I didn't see you. I pushed you away. I let that woman hurt you. I let our baby die. His face crumpled, and he sank to his knees. I'm so sorry. God, Melody, I'm so sorry. The entire room watched this private moment play out on stage. Melody looked down at Harrison, her heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to comfort him. Part of her wanted to walk away and never look back.